So, back to my point. Policy attempts have limited effects by default. And that doesn't just apply to ecological problems, but also to social problems in the form of poverty, crime, hierarchical power abuse, corruption, and the like. And in many contexts, policy evolves then into institutions, regulatory institutions, interventionist institutions as well. Same idea. The Environmental Protection Agency, for example. The general institution of mass incarceration as an outcome of the legal system. And in some cases, you will even have seemingly activist uprisings that attempt creative destruction of existing institutions by attempting their own institutional development. On that context, I must say my current favorite example of this false solution of institutional change is the hilarious pop culture fascination with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. While most people in this arena are just gambling in the context of Wall Street, there is a substantial subculture, shockingly, that thinks somehow the rise of cryptocurrency will forge an institutional transformation of the financial system for the better. Unfortunately, this is not going to be the case, as much as the financial system needs reform. Again, just like policy, institutions are fundamentally subservient to the system they are born from. Bitcoin is no different, and is just a system modulation that ultimately challenges nothing in terms of the fundamental flaws of the financial and banking institution realm, resting, in fact, on a grand delusion and mythology, largely rooted in old libertarian ideas around so-called sound money. Please understand, it doesn't matter how sound you think money is or could be in whatever form, as long as it exists as part of the larger order market system, there will never be much of a difference in core outcomes for public health and society. For example, the persistence of inflation and debt. I have long been a critic of the fiat system and have described its basis in debt as a form of slavery, which is precisely the function it serves. But even if you were able to design a currency that wasn't built upon debt on the government level, meaning the elimination of central banks, debt would still be present through the loan structure of commercial banks or whatever institutional variation arises to replace it. Even if all currency in the world were replaced by cryptocurrency, being peer-to-peer, decentralized, the same structure would still materialize to distribute that currency to people that don't have it, as per the inherent income imbalance generated by market trade. The same market trade that would also incentivize fees for those loan transactions, which would serve the same role as, yes, interest charges. And boom, the debt-based indentured servitude society persists. And I mean that as a broad distinction. It doesn't have to pertain to cryptocurrency. But let's get to inflation. What's missing in that conversation is understanding the system adaptation, as simplicity has moved to complexity over the past 100 years. Bitcoin is designed to only produce 21 million coins, and it's argued that this scarcity reduces inflationary risk. This is merely a variation of the utility of a gold standard or precious metals backing a currency from hundreds of years ago. The point people don't ask when they reflect on why we don't use a fixed money supply or backing anymore, moving into the realm of near infinite fiat, has to do with the total system evolution as it continues to evolve from simplicity to complexity. Modern capitalism today cannot function with a fixed money supply. It is too inflexible to compensate for the extreme imbalances constantly created in the modern global system. It doesn't matter how much you subdivide a single Bitcoin. It comes down to the value of the total supply, the total Bitcoin supply in this case. The moment immediate monetary needs of society exceed that value, the entire society locks up. In the fiat system, value can be created out of thin air based on need and regionally so. Yes, there are huge problems with the fiat system, but the fiat system is consequential of the larger order market economy and the system-level imbalances it creates. A fixed money supply, no matter how vast, is a recipe for disaster in such a complex economic architecture. There will be massive crises that will still happen because of the very nature of market economics itself, having nothing to do with the nature of currency itself, And those crises will have to be met with mass liquidity injections of values, monetary values, that can meet those needs, addressed regionally in virtually all cases. Therefore, coming back to the phenomenon of inflation, this is just what the total system has to do in its current adaptive form. If you don't believe that, just model it with modern statistics. Imagine an island with X number of people. They create a fixed money supply with a given value. You mirror the velocity dynamics of the real world, meaning how the rate of exchange, how fast things are changing hands, and then start unbalancing the system in terms of wealth and income disparity, as is endogenously consistent by mass market trade. And over time, you're going to see that the money supply gets sucked up by fewer and fewer people, along with cyclical major crises that will occur, and that society will come to a halt if new monetary value isn't introduced out of thin air. It is inevitable. In the end, the cryptocurrency sphere is a huge waste of time and energy from a social change perspective. And I hope people who have been sucked into this delusion begin to understand that. If you're into gambling, go ahead. Take other people's fiat money, as quite ironically, the very value of each crypto coin is literally derived from fiat currency. And if you want to use it to send money peer-to-peer without a third-party institution, cool. Some countries can very much benefit from that as well, along with using it as a hedge against domestic currency problems, or perhaps even having utility as an alternative to foreign currency reserves and other things that are discussed. So there is use, there is utility out there. And again, I'm all in favor of peer-to-peer decentralization, as I will talk about more so as we go along. But please, please stop the nonsense, distraction, that this marks some new path toward revolutionary change. It doesn't. So in the end, all of this Bitcoin and crypto delusion has really done is cause great damage to the activist community through distraction. And it's rather grotesque to see propagandists promote it in this way, as a grand solution, when all they're really doing is trying to get other people to buy it, so the price will continue to rise for the sake of the propagandist's wealth that already own it. In fact, as an investment or gambling asset, which is likely all it will ever be, Bitcoin is arguably the most idealized Ponzi asset ever conceived of, as the perceived utility is absent of everything but conjecture, and its foundational scarcity can only push the idea of the price rising. And that's why it's so popular as the mass delusion it is. Unlike stocks, which symbolize the behavior of an existing company, crypto has no fundamental relationship to anything but the vast subjective assumptions of its purpose, coupled with its contrived scarcity once again. It's really quite fascinating and quite depressing as well. In fact, the whole phenomenon can be summarized with an old Woody Allen joke. A guy walks into a psychiatrist's office and says to the doctor, "Hey, my sister thinks she's a chicken." And the doctor says, "Well, you should bring her in. We'll try to fix this." And he says, "No, I can't. You see, we need the eggs."